5 shades of Excel, because we just don't have time right now to do all 50. All right. Got 10 minutes. That's 1 shade for every 2 minutes. The idea here is to show you things in Excel. My goal is to get you to at least once, and maybe more, go, I didn't know you could do that. And in a good way. Something that can save you time, something to keep you from playing crazy mouse. You go down to the bottom and it goes up and down and you try to wait. Just learn not to wave my arms. Goes up and down, or something of the sort. A little bit of PowerPoint first. What presentation is complete without at least some PowerPoint? Peggy Duncan's quote, time management expert. If you can learn how to use the software you touch every day, you can finish everything at least 6 times quicker. Wow. That's something that takes you an hour, will now take you 10 minutes. Suppose she's wrong by half, and that's only 3 times. But still, something that takes you an hour now will only take you 20 minutes. You can use the other 40 minutes for a long lunch. Before I go any further, let me tell you about my favorite episode of MASH. What? I'll tie it together. Bomb lands in the compound. Boom, and it doesn't blow up. So Radar gets on the phone and he finally gets instructions for how to defuse the bomb. And the 2 surgeons are out there working on it, and the whole camp is cleared out, and they're behind mattresses and so on, and Henry's behind the bullhorn. Turn the nut clockwise. And of course they start counterclockwise, and laugh track laughs and go the other way. Cut the red wire. But first, all right. All right. I'll be back to that. This is how most people see Excel. It's a nice, simple tool. This is what Excel really is. Yes, it looks unwieldy, and that's where the analogy ends, because adding all these features to Excel hasn't made it unwieldy. One of the problems is they've added features, and there's no way to let you know they've added the feature. You can only put so many things in one of those little tooltips that pops up when you hover over. And that's where we're gonna look for some of those today. Terminology. Oh, terminology is important for a couple of reasons. Here's one. If you go into help, you're not going to get any results for thingy or what's it. All right? Now, seriously, you need it goes both ways. You need the terminology in order to ask for help correctly. And then, if and when you find it, the help is going to be using the terminology. If it says type something into the name box, you need to know where the name box is. They're not going to say type it into the name box, parentheses. That's that little box up in the corner that you find. It's good. They're going to use the terminology. And we're going to spend one of our shades is to talk about that. It's demo time. But first, see, I told you I was going to tie it together. But first, rule number 1. That's why I put this here. Rule number 1. What is rule number 1? When in doubt, comma, right click. All right. We'll come back to that. Okay, now it's really demo time. Oops. Escape. This is why I leave them hanging around my neck. It looks geeky, but it's even worse, more of a distraction when I go hunting around for them wherever I left them. And they don't work well with name tags. Note to self. I also found out when I was working at help desk that they don't work well with boom mic. This is, speaking of, the name box. It actually does have a tooltip. This is the name box. It says A2. That's because we are in cell A2. When you pick a cell, the name will always be up there. If you happen to know what cell you want to go to, you can type the name in here, hit enter, and it'll go to that cell. There's other reasons for the name box, but that's one of them. These are the tabs. These are all the new in the ribbon, which is what this whole construct here is called. Page layout, formulas. There's all the functions, data. This, and if you've got 2007, this is not there. It's that little round thing that looks like a decoration that isn't really. It's a button, a useful thing. This is where you go to do print. This is the clipboard group, the font group, the alignment group, and so on. Styles. Notice what happens, and this is why people look at an example and say, well, it doesn't look like what I've got. Watch what happens when I shift it over and make it narrow. It collapses some of them, tries to keep the group on the ribbon, but collapses the group. So you see an example that somebody sends you, or even this one here, you go, well, that doesn't look like what I saw before. That could be. And it depends a lot on your screen resolution. Matter of fact, I still didn't get it all the way out, because styles haven't popped. There they go. These things are known as Dialog Box Launchers. It's the little thingy down in the corner. And they do what the name implies. The font Dialog Box Launcher, you say, well, I want to do strike through. And strike through's not up here. Okay. Now you've got to launch the dialog box. And there's the dialog box that comes up when you launch it. Now you can do your strike through if you need to, or to get to features that aren't on the ribbon. And the same thing for number. Notice styles does not have. Not all groups have a dialog box launcher. Just to make sure I don't forget anything. I actually, believe it or not, I actually scripted this. Yeah, novel concept. Oh, there it is. To make sure I got all the terminology. Okay, now that's the top. We'll come back to this mess of things up here in a minute. Down here at the bottom, these are the worksheet tabs. This whole thing here is a worksheet. A set of worksheets is a workbook. That's their terminology. This is, I don't know where it got started. Microsoft does not call this a chart. I went to one client and they kept talking about charts, and I'm going, what? For whatever reason, worksheet equals chart. Chart in Excel speak is a graph. A bar chart, a pie chart, that kind of thing. So just be aware of that. I didn't see anybody nodding their head, so apparently you guys aren't guilty of that. You can name the worksheets, as I did here. You can change their color. When in doubt, right-click. I just right-clicked. You can pick the color. You can rename it. All right. Over here is the view. We're in normal view, page layout, page break view. If you're changing the page layout, this allows you to move back and forth. If you happen to have a workbook that has a whole lot of worksheets, when in doubt, right-click, and now there's all your worksheets, and you can go directly to the worksheet. If there's only a few, you don't need something like that. Over on this side, this is the scroll that scrolls back and forth. We have, okay, what did it do? It got pushed off the edge, no doubt. The zoom, now this isn't the zoom I'm using. Let me get it back to normal. All right, that's why it was running off the edge. I'll go back to sheet 1. Let's do regions. Or navigation, there we go. This slider will zoom it in and out, but notice it's only zooming the worksheet. It's not zooming the controls. The thing I was using to do the zoom is a third-party product called, cleverly, Zoom It. It's free, you install it, and then I programmed the buttons on this to allow it to do the zooming. What else do we want to do? Okay, I said I'd come back to this. You say, all right, I'm busy doing formulas and I want to do bold. That means I got to click here, go back to bold, click on bold, and then go back. I've got to go, I'm here, and it means I've got to keep going back and forth between tabs. If you bold stuff a lot, or whatever, pick something that you do a lot, and you find yourself always having to go back to the tab it's on, you can put it up here. This thing is called the QAT, or the Quick Access Toolbar, and I have that in your handouts. To put something on the Quick Access Toolbar, here's a quiz. How do you think you put something on the Quick Access Toolbar? When in doubt, right-click. Right-click on, let me zoom. I think I need to zoom it first. If I right-click on the bold, notice there's a small menu, but what's the top item? Add to Quick Access Toolbar. There's some others there we're not going to get into. This one, customize the ribbon. Ooh, I need to talk about that. This is the long way around. This is the express method, is to add it. And it does. We click on Add it to the Quick Access Toolbar, and there it is. At the end. And that's it. If you want to move it around, then you're going to have to use the other method I have there, which is the custom method, which from that right click, say customize the toolbar. For instance, customize, and you get a large dialog box with a whole bunch of commands on one side and your toolbar here. But now we can select bold and move it up to wherever you'd like it. And of course, that's also one way to get rid of it. The other way is, guess what? If I want to get rid of this one, guess what? Right-click and remove from Quick Access Toolbar. Okay? Most things in Excel, there's at least 3 ways to do it. Which is better? Whichever one works for you. If you're a touch typist, then all the keyboard shortcuts. If you're more of a mouse person like me, then I use right-click a lot. Actually, I don't think there's any keyboard shortcuts for that, but I did say I was going to talk about this one because it can happen to you. Nope, got to get over here. Minimize the ribbon. The ribbon's gone.
I spent about an hour trying to figure out where all my icons were.
Yeah, there's a couple ways to do it, but I use this more sometimes in PowerPoint because it gives me a little more real estate. I don't need it quite so much in Excel, but to get rid of the ribbon. If you do, though, if you click on Home, it comes back until you bold, then it goes away. You want it back, right click, uncheck minimize the ribbon, and it's back. Or double click on one of the tabs, minimizes it, guess what? Double click. All right, actually if I were going to have a rule number 2, it would be when in doubt, right click. If that doesn't work, double click. Below the ribbon. Oh, and the other thing people like to do, and actually, if I'd started this way, I might be doing it too. Show quick access toolbar below the ribbon. Puts it down here, makes it look more like a toolbar. I'm used to it being up here. That's where the mouse goes. It might. A lot of people I know actually really like it down here better because it's actually closer to the field you're working in. But and you move it back that way. Let me get the blank sheet. I think I've got these two out of order. Yeah. After I printed these up, these two slides are juxtaposition. We're going to do entering data first, and then we're going to go back to selecting. To enter data, select a cell, and we'll talk more about selecting cells. The one way to do it, of course, the most obvious is to click in the cell. And then you enter data. It can be text. If you hit enter, it moves down. If you hit tab, it moves that way. If you hit shift tab, guess what happens? It moves the other way. Shift reverses the sense. That words that way with tabs, adding tabs, and so on. It's sort of a common word concept. Numbers are like text. Now one thing, and I notice, okay, let me do that again. Let me go way up here with it. 8888. This little green check is also the same as enter. This says, oops, sorry, forget it. Boom. Cancel. This says, I want to do it, but notice that the selected cell doesn't move. Oh, and this thing, by the way, has a name. Fred. No. That's called the marquee. It couldn't be a marker, it's the marquee. I don't know. M-A-R-Q-U-E-E, though. The French spelling. What you don't want to get in the habit of doing is clicking somewhere else to do the enter. You say, well, it worked. Yeah, it does. But downstream, when you start entering formulas, it'll mess you up. Do not, it's a bad habit. I'm still trying to break it. I got in that habit long before I really learned Excel and all the things it can do. Use enter, use tab, use the arrows if you need to. Do not rely on entering something, then clicking somewhere else on the spreadsheet. It'll come back and bite you. Works fine, and the trouble is, it works fine 75 to 80% of the time. So you kind of get in the habit, you get in this flow of doing it, particularly as you're setting up your sheet, and then. Sue, let me, Sam. If you select a cell and start typing, it wipes it out. Okay, now, I want to type Harriet again. Now, keep in mind that on a real spreadsheet, this could be a really long entry. Northwestern Territories or something. I'm keeping them short to keep it short here. Alt, the Alt key, and the quote, which of course is Shift. Sorry. Alt, Shift, Nope. Wrong one. What it's supposed to do is, the quote marks look like ditto marks, and it's supposed to put Harriet down there. I must be...
Will that work with a number without making it a sequential number?
No. Oh, yeah, but actually with numbers, well, it's not working here. I'm fumble fingering it somehow. I'm missing exactly what needs to be done. It's not Alt down, or maybe it's Alt Control. One of the other choices is Alt down arrow. Alt down arrow gives you a drop-down list of what's already been entered, and I can click on Harriet. Alt down arrow gives me this, and I can enter that. So if you're entering a lot of things, you can keep from having to do it a lot. That part works. That does not work with numbers. The Alt down arrow does not work with numbers. It only works with text. One of the other things you can do, but I had you just so that you know what things you can do. I set this up before I came. We click on it. It says region. Enter name of one of our sales regions from the drop-down. Click on the drop-down, and there's all the sales regions. Click on it and fill it in. Or down here, now we try to type West, which is not one of the entries, and whoop, wrong. You're fired. You know, that's the Donald Trump error message, but and I get to retry and so on. That's called data validation. It's a little more of an advanced topic, but it's the kind of thing you can do that falls into that percentage that most people don't know about. Cancel. Now, again, I set that up before we started. Let me get rid of the zoom. Now, navigating. If you want to move that way, you can tab, you can use the arrow keys, up, down. I mean, it's not really rocket science, as they say. However, if you want to select stuff, hold the Shift key down and move, and you select. Shift key and the down arrow selects. So if you've got a lot of stuff to select, again, that's a fairly common concept. If you're in Word and you're somewhere in a sentence, hold the Shift key down and use the arrow keys. It will select as you move through. So these aren't foreign. You'd like to move to the bottom of the list. Well, here it's a piece of cake because it's 10 and we can just click in it. But suppose there were 100 entries here. Control down arrow takes you to the bottom of the list. Control down arrow again takes you to the bottom of the entire spreadsheet. All the way down to row 1,048,576. That's the new size for the 2007 and above. Control up arrow takes us up, up, up.
Will the control down arrow work if there's a break in the list?
No. Well, it'll stop there and then it'll jump over it. I don't think I got them included here, but there's a whole list of spreadsheet hygiene, and one of them is no completely blank rows. Now, Shift selected it as we went down. Right? Control took it to the bottom, so if I hold Control Shift, it goes to the bottom and selects. And again, here, trivial. On a long list, handy. Keeps you from playing crazy mouse as you get down there toward the bottom. Another one. Notice, potato chips didn't fit. You say, well, we can go up here and we can move this back and forth. Yeah, or you can get the little double arrow and double click, and it will auto size for you. to the largest, longest string in the, actually it does this one too, hardware, for instance. Or, I can undo that. Select all of them and double click on any one of these, and it does them all. Nice, when you get your list in, way to quit. Select shift arrow, down arrow, just space bar, okay. These are some time savers also. Formats. General format lets Excel choose. It doesn't care. Text makes it text. And it knows it's text. Numbers, .00, the reason it says .00 is because I have launched a dialog box and said to number I want to see 2 decimal places. Very handy with currency. You can say 3 decimal places, doop, and now it's got 3 decimal places. Fills the zeros. Currency, similar for you. Accounting, you say, well, man, what's the difference? The difference is accounting will always put the $ way over on the left. Currency also has these options of red being negative, or the parens, or parens in red, whereas accounting has no such choices. It's just the numbers. Percent, 6%. Notice it says 6%. If I multiply this out, though, it's 0.06. Those percentages, how many mistakes? A lot of mistakes get made with percents. 6%. Oh, that's 0.6. No, it's 0.06. I formatted the column. If I go to somewhere that's blank and type 7 and then the percent sign, it formats it as percent. You can tell how it's formatted. And if it's only one, that's a great way to do it. If it's a whole column, that can get tiresome, so format the whole column. Currency, fraction. This was a 6.25 is what I enter, and it converts it to 6 1/4, 6 1/2, whatever. I'm not sure we use that a lot. Scientific notation is the one with the how many zeros, so 1, 2, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. In scientific notation is 1.2 followed by 6. Dates. Let me enter today's. How many keystrokes is it going to take to enter today's date? 1. Control semicolon. Today's date. Control semicolon. Control colon is time. You say, well, I don't like that date format. So you can drop it down. Oops. Got to enter it. Drop it down and say, okay, I want the long form of the date. Oh, it doesn't fit. What do we know about making things fit? Double click. That's number 2. I took the liberty of entering these numbers ahead so we don't have to spend time with me fumble fingering it. 203-915-0014. Going to go here, format, special, phone number. Boop. You only have to enter the digits. It will format it for you. Guess what? Around here, zip codes are tough to enter because they all start with 0 and it lops off the leading zeros. There it is. That's my zip code, 06483. Special. Isn't that special? Reminds me of Dana Carvey. What a zip code. And zip +4, actually, if you need it. And Social Security numbers. That is not my Social Security number. The special. Again, you only have to enter the digits, and it will format it nicely for you. Now, problem is, if you get something from somebody else and they've put all of these in here, it can get hard to back it all out because that special formatting won't. And sometimes it can be hard to tell which ones were correctly formatted and not. This is comes under the heading of hygiene of getting started the right way. Last but not least, autofill, drag and drop, January. If I just grab that little handle on the corner, this thing right here, the skinny plus, boop, Wednesday, simple series. Oh, it didn't do it. Okay, change my mind box says fill the series. There we go. 2, 4, 6, 8. It's really smart. If you do this, it adds it. If you do this, it knows their ordinals. Whoops, too far. If you do this, you say, oh, that's not going to work. Well, yeah, it does because Excel's smart. Excel are smart. It even knows QTR. And then it knows all about the Chamber of Commerce. No, really, I set that up. I cheated. Thing called custom lists. And I believe I don't have this stuff. It was hard to make a handout about, so put a slide about. And that's about as many shades as we can cover today.
Can I go back on that? Because you did the one and you dragged it and it stayed one.
Yeah.
So normally when I do it, it does. So you just right click and change the other way.
Yeah. What you do when you do that? Let me do this. Right click, clear contents. Right. It thinks you want to fill it that way. There's the I forget what it's really called. It's called the Autofill Options. It's the I changed my mind box. You go down here and say fill series.
Now is that sticky? Do it the same way? Mine always fills. So.
You can set that as a default, I believe. If you give it a sample like 1, 2. And then drag, then it'll do it right, just as it did with the 2, 4.
Same number in multiple fields, and it is always making them sequential.
Yeah, I'm going to say you should be able to then tell it copy cells. You can also copy only the format or copy it without the formatting. That's the other options. So, all right, and along with your handouts, those of you that want handouts, I have them up here. I also have prizes. You guys can have them too. Lipstick.
What color?
Blue.
Yours. Thank you.
You got one already, don't you? You got one. It was inspired by the power outages. All right, I'm here all afternoon, right around the corner at the Speake Software booth. And that's what Speake Software does, Speake Software. Training on Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Word, there's one. Excel's coming up tomorrow afternoon, 4:30 to 6:30 at the chamber. And then 2 weeks later, Word styles. You see, I don't use styles. I go, yeah, you do. You just don't know it. Everything in Word is a style. And failing to recognize that, so.